You probably clicked on this video because FNCS is right around the corner and you and your duo want the best chance of doing well and qualifying through to the finals. In this video I'm going to talk you through everything you need to know in order to be successful. Without further ado, make sure to drop a like and subscribe to follow me on my FNCS journey, and let's get straight into this. Okay, so let's start off by talking about the format for FNCS. Now, there's going to be 2 different weeks of qualifying. The first qualifier is Friday the 12th of April, so very soon at the time of recording this. Now, to be able to play in FNCS, all you need to do to access round 1 is be in the rank of Platinum or higher. So let's face it, this is pretty much most people in Fortnite. From there, on the top 2 regions, which we are focusing on for today's video, Europe and NA Central, you need to come top 2,000 teams, which will give you access to round 2. From there, the top 2,000 teams then shrinks down to the top 1,000 teams, which play in round 3, and then down to the top 250 teams which play in round 4. Now, each of these different stages that you get to gains you series points, and depending on where you do play in each round, it depends on how much series points you get. Now, you need a certain amount of series points in order to qualify to the lower and upper semi-final brackets. Obviously, there is the bye week in between, but you need enough series points combined over the 2 weeks. So this means that you don't really want to switch duos halfway through unless you do incredibly poor on the first week, because you will need an insane second week and probably have to make it to the top 250. Therefore, by playing consistent and possibly making round 3 every week, you should be able to make FNCS semis and be able to play in the lower bracket. Obviously, like I said, there is 2 weeks of qualifying, so even if you mess up the first week of qualifying, you still have that second week. But reminder that if you just play consistent, your series points add up, which is normally enough if you play well and make it to round 3 to get you to them upper and lower brackets. Alright, so let's move on to now what is one of the most crucial stages of the game, which is often overlooked by many people, and that is going to be your early game. Now, with your early game, you need to make sure that you have a consistent drop spot and you know the loot route which you're going to every single game. Now, you should have been hoping to be practicing this in the recent performance eval cups for those of you on EU, or the duo cash cups for those of you on every single region. Now, the reason why is because if you can drop and follow the same loot route every single game, not only are you going to build consistency within your game, but you're going to be able to secure winning that drop spot more, therefore gaining you more kills on spawn, which not only gives you more points in a tournament like FNCS, but also could give you an advantage when it comes to Storm Surge. Now, that is a topic which we will cover later on in this video, but again, just make sure that you are very, very clear with the loot route which you're following early game. Okay, so now next I want to talk about mid-game, because this is crucial in FNCS as the lobbies are likely to be stacked. So it's key that your positioning is good and you guys know exactly where you're going to rotate to depending on where the zone pulls. For me, I'm landing Reckless Railways, and as you can see, if the zone pulls to the left-hand side of the map, I already have a loot route set up, which you can see me following in the background footage, where we rotate up towards a state station, and if not, from there we look on the bridge to get Storm Surge tags. Now, it's key that you guys have a planned rotation route out for every single zone which the zone could pull. So for example, if the zone pulls south from your drop spot, you want a rotation route for where you're going to go if the zone pulls south, and then you're going to follow this every single game, again helping to build that consistency within your game. And it's also crucial that you position yourselves on a good high piece of ground, preferably an elevated layer. This could be on the top of a mountain or on the top of a building, for example, so you have a good field of view to look for Storm Surge tags. Now, this seems like an appropriate time to talk about Storm Surge. Alright, so let's talk about what actually is Storm Surge. Well, it's a mechanic which Epic added to Fortnite where the players or teams that have done the least damage to opponents in the lobby begin taking 25 damage from the storm every 10 seconds. Now, the reason for this is because it forces players to fight, therefore decreasing the player counts, which helps these servers run better and also makes the game less stacked. Now, what is the common rule of thumb when it comes to Storm Surge? You always want to be at least 200 above. You will get an indicator on your screen which will tell you whether you're either above or below the threshold, and you always want to try and stay 200 damage above the threshold, as it can move quite quickly. Now, this is exactly the reason why you like to position high on an elevated layer in the lobby, so you can constantly look to damage other players, therefore keeping you above the threshold, meaning you can play out your game normally, while other teams that are below the threshold therefore have to throw and potentially damage their games by pushing other teams. So it's a very tactical mechanic from Fortnite, and it's very key that you stay above the threshold at all times. So now, annoyingly, it's reached the point of the video where I kind of have to tell you guys that you need to be carrying DMRs and snipers. Now, annoying as this is, recently they have buffed the DMR like hell. Even despite the fact that they've nerfed the sniper in the ground, it's still reasonably OP at getting Storm Surge. The reason is because if you can body shot with a sniper, that's 116 damage, which is the equivalent of 4 AR tags, sometimes even 5 or 6 at a long range. And tell me what's easier to hit, even though the sniper's been nerfed. As well as this, a regular DMR DMR these days since the buff does insane damage. For example, if you look at just the green Huntress DMR, it's doing 61 damage. I'll pop up on screen all the damages of all the different varieties, and you guys can see there's absolutely crazy for Surge. It's crucial that you and your duo is either running the DMR or a Sniper in your loadout every single game if you can, in order to stay above that Storm Surge threshold to ensure that you guys are making it to the endgame. Now, that's an appropriate time to start talking about what to do in endgame. So obviously endgame is where all your points are at. It's where you get your wins, and it's really where you get access to them massive placement points. So how exactly are we going to capitalize this on the FNCS day? Now, in a team, or in your duo, sorry, you need to have an IGL and a fragger. Now, the fragger is most likely going to be the more mechanical and better fighter of the two of you, and their job is to stick by you whilst you're tarping, but also block off the back of your tarp, making sure no other team sneaks in and is able to grief you, whilst also looking for refreshes to help refresh the mats of the IGL. Now, what is the IGL's job? Well, this personally is my role in the duo, and I choose to always make the decisions, as this is something the IGL always needs to do. You need to have a set out game plan which you want to follow, and you need to give all the comms to the fragger, so the fragger knows to stick by you and do exactly as you say. This allows you to have good chemistry and keeps it clear. Instead of switching between who is the IGL every single time, you want to make sure someone is designated to have this role so that it's clear in endgame and there is no communication problems. Obviously, another key tip in endgame is making sure that you stay together at all times. You don't want to split up in endgame. Like I've sort of just said, if you're a fragger, you always want to stay by your IGL, and your fragger always wants to refresh your map so your IGL can continue tarping. Now, I do want to very quickly focus on layers. The higher elevated layer you are, the less you're going to get pressured, or the more stacked the teams are going to be around you. So for example, if you're second height is most likely going to pressure you because you're likely a stacked team yourself. So it's often a good idea to play somewhere in the mid ground, as on the low ground teams are often looking to get in, which sometimes can cause you and your fragger, or you and your duo, sorry, to be separated. But that's pretty much all I have, especially if you are an IGL. Last thing I want to say is always make sure that you keep your tarps accessible and easy for your fragger to follow, as they're going to be blocking off the back, therefore meaning you're not going to get jumped in on by another team. So I feel like I've pretty much covered all the generic tips and everything in the main part of what I wanted to get into in today's video, but let's talk through a few extra tips which I have. A key item which everyone needs to hold in order to be successful is going to be the Flowberry Fizz. Now, this is because it allows you to do both of you at the same time, both giving you that low gravity effect, and it is key for rotations. Yes, the Flowberry does also give the same effect, but the Flowberries simply aren't as good, as I believe they only last for 5 seconds compared to the Fizz's 10 seconds, and also you get 100 Fizz. I'd recommend both you and your duo running a Fizz, but also if you get separated or if one player goes down, the other player still has access to rotation in your duo. Obviously, this is at all times if possible. Now, as well as both the Flowberry Fizz and Flowberries being crucial in order to get your endgame rotation, you also need to make sure that you are also carrying some quick healing, such as Shieldfish or Floppers. Now, the reason why is because these can heal you extremely fast, and especially in these games where you might need to out heal Storm Surge, or in the moving zone where you've taken a lot of damage, these can be crucial at healing you up very quickly, and they are the quickest healables in the game. Now, of course, there is always something to mention, which is the heal off, so you may need to carry medkits if this does come into the event of it, but I always like to think just focus on carrying shield up until the very final zone, then you can go looking for your white heals, because you never know, you might not make it to the final zone, so it's better that you have shield to replenish your shield health instead of just carrying medkits for the heal off, which you might not even reach. Thank you guys very much for watching today's video. I really hope this has helped you out. If it has, please make sure to drop a like, check me out on Twitch, twitch.tv/Manzanosis, and subscribe to see the rest of my FNCS journey. Peace out, everyone.